All right, Joe. So you said off the mat training, you're doing some little bit of striking work. Is
Yep.
that right?
Yep.
How do you, what's that work? What's it look like?
Okay. I have an app on my phone, the timer app, and I've got it set for right now for 3-minute rounds with a 30-minute break. And then I have a double-ended bag, I have a heavy bag, and I have a speed bag. And I just go through the rotation for like half an hour.
You said a 30-minute break. Is it 30-second break?
30-second. That would be more my speed, but no, a 30-second break. So it's 3 minutes on, 30 seconds off.
Okay.
Yep.
That I think that's good because it makes you push a little bit more versus just that's my problem a lot when I do like exercise. I need that like a timer or something to push me past when I'm done. I'm ready to be done. So yeah.
If I don't have a timer, it will be like 30-minute breaks and very short rounds. So,
And how much? How do you? Are you counting like just a workout? You could care less about your technique and form, or are you trying to keep that clean? And have,
oh yeah. I'm working on technique and form. Seems kind of pointless to do it any other way. So work a little on my southpaw, work a little on my Jersey Joe, with the jab hand low kind of thing.
okay.
So
All
anyway,
right.
I heard a long time ago. I work in the safety industry, and one of my bosses said the best personal protective equipment to put out to the fleet is stuff that people will wear. If it's uncomfortable, if it makes them look stupid, whatever, if they ain't going to wear it, they ain't going to use it. I look at kind of fitness routines kind of the same way. So I don't know if just a casual boxing routine is right for everybody else, but I know it's something I'll do. I enjoy it. So that's why I work it in.
That makes sense. It's an added benefit of staying in like the martial arts world versus me where I'm going and I ran this morning. I haven't. I got to do my yoga still. I usually do it right from a run, but I didn't have time for this,
Yeah.
so I'll do that after this Skype. But
Okay, let's turn this over to the yoga. So you've been working on that. Tell me about your routine, and did you say you're already seeing gains?
yeah, like the third day I'm seeing gains. Like
Nice. So how long are you involved in this yoga routine every day?
basically since the pause of jujitsu, I don't know if that's been 10 days or a week. I don't remember when that started, but uh, I do know that flexibility is a weakness of mine, and I don't know if it just makes me perform a little bit worse than I could, or possibly I get potential for more injury being less flexible. Probably both.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just not, to me, it's just not like a fun thing. We're lucky that jiu-jitsu is fun and it's a workout. So when I do yoga, I just do it, and it's super simple. I do I go to YouTube. I don't have a routine yet, but I'm okay with finding that. I go to YouTube. I type in 10-minute yoga, and then a lot of times I'll put the word beginner on that, and I'll do a new one. And a lot of them are very similar as far as the stretches and the poses and the remember to breathe and all that stuff. Like, so if I find one that I really like, I think I might stick with it a little bit. But I do like going out there and just kind of checking the different places and see what these people are offering, or as far as their yoga stuff goes.
You mentioned it's a specific type of yoga. What's unique about it? If somebody's looking, if they're interested.
I don't. I just do. Google. I just YouTube yoga 10 minutes. I mean, that's the type is 10 minutes because I don't want to do it for. Some of these are like 30-minute long or an hour, and that's. I found one that was for after a run, which was nice because that's when I typically will do my yoga after a run. So like the gains I've seen when I would stand up and then go to touch my toes, I would get about mid shin.
Yep.
That's terrible. So I told my wife I look at that more as a disability than just part of who I am. Like I'm an average strength, or whatever for my weight. But if I was well below average strength, that would be a disability as far as would, so I was like, if I just view my flexibility or inflexibility as a disability that can be fixed.
Yep.
It's fixable. And then maybe someday it'll be an advantage for me. But right now I'm getting to the range where I'm getting more normal. So that's my goal. And so my original standard stretch, which they don't really do a lot in the yoga videos I do, but like stand up, go down, touch your toes, mid shin. Now I can actually touch my toes briefly. Like that's a pretty good gain in a little over a week.
That is phenomenal.
Yeah, and I do another thing. So at work I do 100 pull-ups all at one time. Just kidding. No, I do them. I do 5 a minute for 20 minutes, and so I just do pull-ups for 5 minutes or 5 reps, and then I stop, and my interval timer lets me go a minute of taking a break, hop back up on there, do another 5. It's when I first started these, and it's been a while. I was sore, and it was pretty tough by the end of these 20. But it's just the normal workout now. Like I'm not sore the next day. I probably should up it to 6 or do it for a little longer. But in between, I've been stretching and doing yoga, so I don't have to. I guess I get more yoga time doing that. But so for that 1 minute break, I'm actively doing yoga then, and that's been good as well. But yeah, it's just the pull-up is such a good jiu-jitsu exercise because it's if you want to add pressure to your passing and all that stuff is pulling. So that's to me that's a good one to have.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu guys got big strong lats and tiny little pec muscles.
I'm not a big strong lats guy either, so.
Hey Byron, I had another question for you because this actually has come up a few times recently. How about visualization? Is that something you use when you can't be on the mats, and in what way do you use it?
That's another weakness I think of mine. So you're talking about like sitting there and thinking about your techniques and thinking about things and kind of, I guess,
Yep.
Visualizing them.
Yep, you're just sort of walking. Well, that's the way I do it. I just sort of walk through the steps on my mind. I don't know if that's really the correct way or how other people use it. But
yeah, I should do that. I think if you look at anybody in any sport that is top of the food chain, they have something like that they're doing. And I'm sure there's a few outliers, but you get similar. Your brain a lot of times doesn't know the difference between you actually doing it and you thinking about doing it, or so it's helping you rewire those lay that myelin down thicker. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of room for. I think the most I do for talent code. I sent him an email a couple days ago, and I asked Daniel Coyle. I said, "Do you see any advantage in this this coronavirus thing with some teams?" And he said some teams are going to use this to their advantage and actually be able to adapt to these changes and make a gain. And a lot of teams will struggle. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, you do get. You do. It's not the same. You can't just think about jiu-jitsu all day. But the most I do with visualization is right before I start a roll. I think, what do I want to do? Like if I want to get a certain takedown on Joe, like I want to I like to kind of like pop you in the forehead or pull your head down a little bit, get you thinking about that, and then I'll change levels. I'm going to shoot. I'm going to go for the close leg. I'm going to grab right behind the ankle and get a good grab on it. I'm going to come up with it. And I try to quickly think about, I want to do this, and then these steps, I need to hit all of these quickly. That's about the best I do, but I do think that there's a lot of room for improvement, especially when after doing this for so long, it's like, I don't go to bed like stressing out or thinking about jiu-jitsu or my last roll, but if you're thinking about your jiu-jitsu, or you have that routine of you go home and you run through the stuff that coach showed you one more time before you go to bed, or maybe the first thing in the morning the next day, that's a good practice to start.
Yeah. When I worked on the ships, I did something that might be helpful to some people in the current situation. I would back then it seemed the only training videos I had were pirated YouTube videos, so they're 8-10 minute videos. And when I was on the ship, I would watch a couple of related videos, and then I'd spend 15 minutes stretching. And while I was stretching, I would walk through the techniques that I just watched, and then I would do a short workdown routine. So I find that to be helpful. I did see a study.
That's a thing of the past, or do you still do some visual?
I haven't done near as much of it because I get to train regularly now. But back in those days, I was 14 days without training routinely. And during the 14 days I couldn't train, that's when I would focus on that.
There's definitely a benefit to, I think it's John Kavanaugh said, or maybe it was Conor McGregor, upgrade the software without damaging the hardware.
Good point.
You will not get injured visualizing techniques. Now, will you become it'll move you up a little bit. Will it move you up a ton? Maybe not. But if your problem is like mine, remembering techniques sometimes, like, I don't know, I'll come into class and not remember what we were working on the day before. Hey, Eric. Eric is muted. Oh, hello, Eric.
Hey, how are you?
Doing well.
Great to be here. I've been a long-time listener.
Well, good. We're glad you stopped by. We're just talking about visualizing techniques and do. So, Joe, see if Eric does this sort of thing. Eric, real quick, introduce yourself a little bit. How long you been training?
Yeah, Eric Scouten. I am in Illinois, Chicago, suburb of Roselle right now. I'm actually at work. I'm a chiropractor. And so we're in essential business, so we're staying open. So I might have to duck out at some time.
Okay.
But so anyway, I'm a blue belt, been training for about 8 years. And I've been one of these guys who's on again, off again. So I'm on the long program.
That's all right.
But it's going real. I train with Compredo.
Okay.
Up in so Compredo's in Bloomingdale, Illinois.
That's awesome.
So Eric, we were just talking about visualization a little bit. A lot of guys are not training right now. I used to be in a routine where I could only train for 2 weeks, and then I couldn't train for 2 weeks. I worked on ships, and I would watch technique for 10 minutes or so, and then spend 10 minutes stretching out and visualizing myself doing those techniques. Do you ever utilize anything like that?
Honestly, not much.
Okay. I find that to be pretty common.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things of course I think about as a theory, like, oh, that would be the best thing to do in the world, but
Yeah.
Hasn't too much.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely value there. So Eric, as a chiropractor, do you when you're doing jiu-jitsu, do you think about the body alignment differently, you think, than most people?
I'm certain I do that. Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes we'll be rolling around, we'll be doing something that, you'll often hear something pop, or you'll even hear your spine crack a little bit when you're just rolling sometimes. And I'll joke around with my training partner. I'm like, all right, well, now you owe me $60.
Yeah.
That happens a lot, especially at the beginning of the class when people are still tight. So that's actually pretty funny.
Yeah. Are there any like things somebody could do from home as far as a stretch or a type of thing that you would recommend just for the average jiu-jitsu person?
Oh yeah, there's tons actually. I mean, I have whole routines, but stretching out the big muscle groups is obviously the main thing. The two tips that I would give people if they were asking me is, number one, do a light warm up first before a stretch. So I would say get warmed up first, 10 minutes of getting your heart rate going. It could be a light jog, it could be running, it could be even walking, it could be just movement, and then stretch. That's the most optimal way. Now, I understand that 99.9% of people are not going to do it that way, myself included. but that's really the best way to do it. And then start out stretching the big muscle groups first, which would be the hamstrings, the glutes, the quads, and then the shoulders. So I tell people, do a two sets of 30 seconds on each side. So like a straight leg stretch, something like that. And then a quad stretch, which would be like a leg flexion type thing. So I got a whole routine that I take my patients through and other athletes through.
Nice.
I remember going to a chiropractor thinking, well, this isn't going to be nearly as bad as jujitsu. Like, but no, it's like, as far as like, we're going to pick it like this and then like this. And
Pretzel. I call that move the pretzel. Absolutely.
Are there any jujitsu techniques that remind you of like a chiropractic technique?
Not really, but
Man, I would think like maybe the leg drag. I feel like I'm getting twisted in bad directions with that leg drag pass.
Okay. All right. So here's one for you. So Byron, you asked me if there's anything that reminds me. So the sideline posture adjustment, that's kind of when you're on your side like this. And I'll need to bend the person's leg, and I'll often be like, listen, you need to hook your leg. So I'm like, you got to hook your top leg over your bottom leg. And they don't have any idea what I'm talking about. So that's pretty funny. And then I'll have to grab their foot, and I'll have to like twist it under their knee. I'm like, see, now you're hooking your leg. And that's just so I can get their leg properly positioned so that I can then push down on it and do the low back adjustment. So that's pretty funny, actually. So now that you said that, you actually reminded me that, in fact, maybe there is a little bit more in there. So, and I'll often say, okay, I'm now going to push your shoulder back while I'm pulling your hip towards me, and it's going to feel like you're getting pinned on the mat.
Yeah.
And some people know what I'm talking about. Maybe they've seen wrestling. Other people are just like, whatever. So, yeah. But it is funny. Almost all my patients, they talk to me, and everybody knows I do jiu-jitsu. It becomes a point of humor often.
You ever get your patients to come in and train?
I've talked to almost all my male patients, and I've gotten a few to train, actually. Yes. Yeah. I've gotten a few to, like, I wouldn't try to steal somebody's from one school to another, but I've come over have come over. We're in the northwest suburbs of Chicago here. There's actually quite a bit of jiu-jitsu here, quite a bit, which is great. So some of the schools, are really close to each other.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's good to be with you guys. I've been a listener now for 3 years. So it's been
awesome.
You actually did an interview with Comprito.
Yeah, I did.
4 years ago. Yeah, I listened to that. It's pretty good. So he was in here yesterday. He's a pretty consistent client of mine, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. As are many of my training partners, which is
I bet.
wonderful. Yeah.
You always find new business just by going working out.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, with chiropractors, just like any other thing, if you go out and meet people, you're going to get clients. Just by osmosis, really. So
let me ask you this, because we're talking about this. What are you doing now that during this whole coronavirus thing to stay in shape?
Well, luckily, Comprito is doing online classes on Zoom.
Nice.
Cool.
And of course, it's really basic. We're all in this learning curve, right? I never had Zoom until last week, Tuesday, right? I never heard of Zoom, but suddenly I'm on Zoom now with my own app, and I'm doing even consults online as well. So we're all in the learning curve. So is Comprito. He's at his home in his living room, and we're doing just stretches and things like that. And drills. So what would normally be our normal warm up, which we do for maybe 5-10 minutes max, he's now doing as like a workout, which is good. Now I had not worked out for a few weeks. I woke up this morning pretty sore just because I hadn't moved around much.
What kind of drills are you doing?
Oh gosh, what did he take us through? One I'm horrible at. It's the beginning of the berimbolo roll, where you kind of put your arm behind you and roll over. I am so terrible at it. It's comical. And then doing like going up and doing a triangle, lifting
Sure.
your hips high, come down with your legs crossed. We've been doing that. Just getting the hips moving, circles out, circles in, shrimping in place.
Nice. Okay.
Just basic stuff that we've probably all been doing since our first minute of class, and just turning it into a 45-minute session. And then he's been doing like sets of each thing for 2 minutes, and we just kind of do it at your own pace. And then he calls out the next drill, do it for 2 minutes. And he's got like 4 or 5 or 6 of the drills. And then once we finish a set of each for 2 minutes, we do it again. So we're doing 4 or 5 sets of that. So it becomes just a cardio workout.
Nice.
Which is, it's just pretty good. We did one where it's like a butterfly sweep. You mimic that. You go all the way over.
Yeah.
You put your shoulder on the ground, forehead on the ground, kick up, and then come back, reset.
Yeah, perfect.
That was one we do. We did, like hip slides. We start from turtle and then sort of kick out into a slide, baseball slide.
Like a wrestler sit out.
Yeah, sit outs. Yeah, thank you. Think of the word. I call it baseball slide.
Yeah, same thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. That's good stuff.
Yeah, one of our coaches, Marcelo Kropotkin, he did one with us also because they alternate the drills, taking a gi and doing like spider guard with your gi.
Yep.
That was pretty hard for me because you're trying to hold your gi up and doing like lassos with it. Yeah. I had never done that ever. That was new.
Should help with your dexterity of your feet when you're playing spider guard for real. Yeah.
Right, and I'm not a spider guard player much at all. My legs are pretty short, and it was actually really good. And he's like, "Okay, remove your foot, go around, pull back like you're in the guy's armpit, pull him forward, And this is just holding your own gi up like there's a guy right there.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
It's actually harder, I think, just doing it that way.
At least that guy can't pass your guard very easily.
Yeah, I wish that were the case. My guard is like butter. You just go right through, no problem. Just go ahead. Just fine. Green light.
Green light. Well, if there's just nobody in the gi, the odds of him passing are a little bit less.
Oh, he passed my guard too. I just don't know what else going on there. Yeah, he had no problem. So real good. So who are you guys interviewing next? Anybody in the hopper?
We just got done yesterday. We did a project, or I don't know what you call it, interview or whatever, with the guys from BjjBrick campaign. So yeah, we've got one in the hopper, and then that one, and then I don't know for sure. We just.
Any suggestions?
Oh gosh, good question. I should have come up with that, but no, I'm sure I will think of some. How about, I know there was a little thing going on with the BJJ Globetrotters.
Yeah.
And how they got kind of nixed out of IBJJF tournaments.
Yeah, that story kind of went away with everything being shut down, but I remember that now.
And I don't know who's the guy who heads that up. You may have interviewed
Christian
him.
Grelgaard. Yeah.
Have you interviewed him in the past?
Yeah.
You may have, yeah, and kind of find out what's behind all that. I was kind of curious. Obviously, it seems fairly political, in terms of that. Maybe
you're right. That would be a good person to talk to, and just to see what's happening there, and as they.
Yeah, another one. Jason, is it Scully? From Grapple. I'm blanking out. I'm a subscriber to his website.
Is it BJJ Scout? Is that Jason Scully?
No.
I'm familiar with his YouTube. I know that.
Yeah, I'll think of it. I got my phone here. No, it's not BJJ Scout. He's got a really amazing tutorials, everything. It's probably the best online. It's $97 for a lifetime membership.
Grappler's Guide.
Grappler's Guide. That's it.
Thank you. I had I not been online here, I would have just come up with it. Yeah, Grappler's Guide. Have you ever interviewed him?
No.
Okay, he's actually really good, and he's been doing a lot. He has a huge database now, where he's got his own tutorials on everything, every position, everything. It's rather vast, actually. And then now his thing, he's getting guest instructors to film their own tutorials on whatever their game might be, and he's getting all kinds of world champs and other really good people. And for $97, it's an unbelievable database. It's really unbelievable, actually. I mean, there are hundreds at this point, maybe even thousands of hours worth of content.
Mm-hmm.
And for $97, it's a one-time deal. That's it. Once you pay it once, it's good. So, and then they've got a pretty robust community, on Facebook and whatnot.
Yeah.
So he's actually pretty good. And he seems to be doing a lot for the community. Who's the guy from Australia who just went real far in ADCC?
Lachlan Giles. Yeah.
Yeah.
Him right after that.
Right. So he and Lachlan did a whole series.
Oh, cool.
And you don't pay any extra. You just whatever he's throwing out there.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which is great. So, yeah, if I could come up with some of the
So, Eric, let me ask you this: what got you to start jiu-jitsu? What was it about it?
Okay, well, everyone has a story, right?
Yeah.
And I have my own story. My story was so the chiropractic's involved in this story, but basically, I was a big boxing fan. Remember Mickey Ward, Arturo Gatti fights?
Oh yeah,
There's that awesome trilogy. So, I was in my maybe mid-20s when those were going on, and at the time, I thought that boxing was like the best martial arts sport. Like growing up, I didn't do any martial arts. I wrestled for a year, okay, but I was not into like Jean-Claude Van Damme movies or anything like that. It just wasn't my thing. But I thought boxing was pretty awesome. Watching Mike Tyson and then Lennox Lewis. So that's kind of what I grew up on. So one day in chiropractic, it's like 10 years ago or so, maybe eight years ago, at a chiropractic event, we were sponsoring a 5K race near my clinic. And, it was one of these charity 5K races that, you just do. We had a little booth set up and near the finish line. And also one of the other sponsors who also had a booth set up right next to mine was a boxing gym. Okay. It was a franchise. They never went big, but they were called LA Boxing. Okay. And it turns out it was very close to my clinic. I ended up joining this boxing gym and I was in heaven. Like I thought it was great. I'm doing these boxing lessons. I was taking a couple of privates and I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be the next, Mickey Ward here. And they knew I was a chiropractor. And of course you become friendly with the managers and the owners and the trainers, just like anything else. And one day they're like, all right, Eric, we're going to have an in-house tournament and we need like a ringside doctor, so to speak, for the tournament. I'm like, all right, no problem. I'm there. And I've never done that before. So I volunteer my services for their in-house tournament. And like 80% of the fights that day were fights. They were boxing and kickboxing matches. Okay. And up to this point, I had never even seen jiu-jitsu. I'd never seen a UFC fight. What little I had maybe ever seen, I'm like, what are the gay guys doing rolling around? Like that was my extent of knowledge. Okay. Like nothing. So in this night of fights, they happened to throw in a couple of MMA fights, like in the mix. And being like ringside, I'm like, oh. And some of the fights that were MMA fights went to the ground. And these young dudes are rolling around like snakes in there. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. Like there's a system to that. I don't know what the system is, but those kids know what they're doing. So the next day, I go to one of the boxing trainers. And this boxing trainer was a golden glove champion in Chicago, a heavyweight boxer. So he was a really excellent boxer. So I go to him and I go, hey, Otto, what's that stuff those kids were doing during those weird fights, like the stuff in the ground? He goes, Eric, that's jujitsu. And I'm like, Jushu-who's? He's like, yeah, jujitsu. I'm like, well, what's that? He goes, well, I'm a brown belt in jujitsu. And he's like, if you ever, he goes, we don't teach it here at the boxing gym, but I train under this guy named Carlson Gracie Jr. He goes, if you want to come train with us in Chicago, come on over. I'm like, oh, well, I think I'll check it out. So that was my foray into jiu-jitsu, and I haven't looked back. And Otto ended up getting his black belt, and I ended up training under him for a couple of years. And then I switched jobs and kind of moved away a little bit. But and then I kind of found my way to Compredo. But that's my in. That's my story. So yeah, and who would have known? I mean, the first time I was like, who are these Gracie people? Who's Ralph Gracie and who's Royson Gracie?
Byron, do you remember your first exposure to jiu-jitsu?
Exposure? I mean,
Yeah,
just
like
watching.
when you first saw it, like Eric was talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be like the real common watching UFC on VHS tapes, and then trying to reverse engineer that with buddies and my brother, and trying to see what's going on, and then
Yeah, the first thing I remember about seeing jiu-jitsu was the UFC, and Hoist had somebody in his guard and was kidney kicking him like you could back then.
With the back of his heels?
Yeah, with his heels.
Shamrock probably.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't Shamrock, but I remember thinking, if this guy could just get out of this position, he could just beat this dude up. Obviously, he's a tougher guy, I think if he could just get out of here. And the guy started pushing away, and I'm like, now he's getting out of this bad position. And next thing I knew, Hoist was on his head with the guy's arm bent completely backwards, and I was like, it's like you, Eric. I'm like, what the hell is that? So yeah, nobody had a clue back then if you weren't lucky enough to know somebody else who did it.
Yeah, I never saw a UFC event until right around UFC. It was either 99 or 100.
Oh wow!
One of the first ones I ever saw was BJ Penn was fighting for one of his titles, and that was I was kind of a latecomer to that. It's kind of interesting, and I was like, wow. And then of course I became an instant addict.
So you were a boxing fan before that.
I was, right.
But they would talk about the UFC, I'd imagine. Like some
almost no.
Really?
Very, very little. Like, HBO Boxing would have a lot of the big pay-per-views. Jim Lampley was one of the announcers. He was, for whatever reason, they would never even talk about MMA.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, those two worlds were at the time pretty separate.
Yeah.
Now I think it's crossed over quite a bit in the last couple of years, but not not till then now. And then now I don't think I haven't watched any boxing for years.
Yeah.
Like I
don't really watch MMA either.
Oh, I do. I still like to watch UFC. In fact, I was in Vegas for the McGregor-Cerrone fight.
Cool.
Which was a lot of fun, yeah. That was a lot of fun. It was on my bucket list. I'm like, one of these days, I just want to go to Vegas one time and watch fights. So it's one thing finally off my bucket list. At 46, you start thinking about your bucket list, right?
Yeah.
So I got one thing knocked off there.
That's good.
Yeah. So you're a fighter, right?
Yep.
Are you currently on leave, or are you actually still going in?
Yeah, we go. I mean, I work my normal schedule. I work a 24-hour shift, and then I'm off for 48.
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
So I'll go into work tomorrow at 6:30 in the morning, and I'll be there till 6:30 the next morning.
Any cases of the virus in your city?
Oh yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, it's here. So we're doing what we can, taking precautions and using some equipment, and one of the more interesting things that we do is a doorway triage is what they call it. It's a clever name, but we'll literally stand in the doorway and say, "Can you come outside? Get them out of the house if possible." And do they have and if they, let's say they're in the back bedroom, I'll say, we'll ask the other people in the house, do they have a fever? Do they have a cough? Have they been anywhere? you know, and just kind of run through a checklist of questions with them. And then if it's different if it's most of our calls are not actual medical emergencies, but like it's just somebody having a little bit of trouble and needs to go in or whatever. But you know, in the case like just the other day, we had somebody who was a medical emergency. It was like one of us goes up there, starts doing the doorway triage. The other one is putting on all of our equipment and gown and mask and everything, and then that person goes in and takes care. So we tried to send one person in. And then the other big thing that we do is if you do get exposed. So if you go in with all your PPE on, you're not an exposure. But if we have had crews go in on somebody who had stomach pains, and they go in there and the person's got a fever and a cough, it's like, come on. And so they're now exposures. And so then that team does not go back into the fire truck. You keep that thing clean. We call a chief, and they'll come transport you to a kind of a waiting area where you go through like a decon process, and you wait to see if you've been exposed to that patient, if that person has it, or you know, if they do, you're looking at you in a few days to see if you have it, I guess. But it's all. I don't know. I guess a few firefighters have been tested. I haven't had the exposure yet. You know, I've been fortunate enough not to get classified as that. But yeah, there's some. I think that they do have some priority towards first responders in getting the test. But yeah, there are tests here. I don't know if there's obviously more would be better. But
sure.
How are you guys running your show there?
We're just doing our best to keep social distancing and cleaning things up like crazy. And, you know, we ask all our patients to just, you know, we only want the healthy walkable people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nobody who's got a sniffle or a cold or an allergy or a fever, they're not even allowed in, period. Just stay home. And then people who come to the clinic, we are large enough here to social distance inside the clinic, you know, from the waiting room to we have plenty of rooms where people can get private treatments, and then everything gets thoroughly cleaned after every visit. So yeah, pretty basic.
So you do jiu-jitsu and you did some boxing stuff. Do you do any other sports or physical activities?
Right now, no. I should, but I don't really at all. I've run a couple marathons.
Oh man.
But it's been a while, you know, it's been several years since I've done that. So my background is running. I ran track in high school. I played football in high school too. And then all through my college years, I was a bit of a runner. So I've run 2 marathons, but it's been a couple of years, and I, you know, I'm just bored with that.
Eric, which one's hard from your perspective, obviously, which one's harder on the body, competitive jiu-jitsu or marathon running?
You know, it's, for me, well, both are hard, right? I mean, for me, the running was harder. My hips were starting to get a little broken down, and I could x-ray my own hip, but I haven't done so. But I think I've got some hip degeneration in one of my hips from running. So whenever I start running and I'm consistently above like 3 to 4 miles, my right hip starts to really bother me for days and days. And it's just kind of chronic. So that was one of the reasons why I wanted to get off there of running, but they're both hard.
Yeah.
Is the fact. I blew out a disc in my low back in jiu-jitsu. My L5-S1 intervertebral disc just blew out terribly, and I came this close to getting surgery. I ended up not doing it, and by the grace of God and physical therapy and chiropractic, I was able to avoid it, but I came close. You know, I was in a couple of rounds of cortisone to knock down the inflammation and a lot of physical therapy, and I was able to avoid it. But, for a while I had some temporary nerve damage for sure in my left foot, where it went numb for several months.
So lower back mobility and hip mobility are pretty important in jiu-jitsu. Do you find some techniques that you're not doing because of those two injuries or conditions or whatever?
Yeah, anything inverted, I avoid
Yep.
like the leg. And that's not my body style anyway, because I'm naturally not very flexible. I don't have long limbs, don't have long legs, so I'm not one to go inverted. But even if I were at this point, there's no way I'm gonna do that.
Yep.
You know, if I have a hard practice and somebody stacks me hard the next day, I feel it. I'm kind of wrecked. I'll feel that disc starting to creep back over on that left side, like, my left foot's numb again. So, yeah, getting stacked is really hard for me. If somebody pressure passing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's why I don't do much of that.
Yeah.
I'm a top game person.
Yeah.
Get on top, stay on top.
That's
Yep.
right.
You said about running when it going a little bit longer, 3 or 4 miles, you start to creep up there, you start to bother you. There's really no options. Like either you're going to run far distance or you're going to run a shorter distance. But like with jiu-jitsu, you just don't, try to avoid guard. You definitely avoid people stacking you. You avoid techniques that would happen naturally. There's so many areas. I know a lot of guys that have shoulder problems or, and they just play half guard on the same side every time. And it's like they still have plenty of jiu-jitsu to do. It's kind of more like a triathlon as far as if you were a triathlete and your hip started bothering you at the little more, maybe you bike more or maybe you make up that cardio in swimming. But with just running, you just have to, it's same motion. And
right.
That is kind of tough on you as far as being able to find ways to go train your activity. Jiu-jitsu is so flexible as far as what you could do or what you could work on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had some shoulder issues too. Somebody put me in an Americana, and through my own fault, I tapped way too late, and he cranked me hard. He did the right thing. I should have just tapped a couple of moments earlier. And I'm like, I think I might have tore a labrum there. I was pretty stuck for a couple of months. Like, oh boy, it's not moving so good. So, yeah, but we all have the same stories, right? Have to a second too late or whatever happens. I've been lucky to avoid any major injury though.
Good.
Nothing that's kept me off the mat too long. Although I was off the mat for 3 months with the back injury.
Yeah.
So that was a while. How about you, gentlemen? Any major injuries?
No, I've been pretty lucky like you. I got bad shoulders from previous, and so I got to nurse those a little bit, but I've never had like a broken limb or something that kept me off for 6 months.
Okay. And you're purple, is that right? Have I heard that in the past?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. And who do you train with?
I train at a Brazilian top team affiliate here. I'm south of Houston by about an hour.
Okay, gotcha.
So
how did you? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, my coach is Fernando Hallfeld. How did we get hooked up? I started listening to the podcast 4 or 5 years ago, and they were fishing for articles from anybody that would be willing to write one. So I started writing a couple articles and then coming on and talking about them, and it just kind of evolved into this.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, we've met in person like 3 times, and the rest of it's all online.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's real good. Yeah, that's great. What a community.
Yeah, really.
And now you're in the Maritime?
Yeah. I'm a captain by trade, and right now I work in the safety department. I'm still on a 14 and 14 rotation, but when I go to work, I don't go on the ship. So there's a little gym over there I train at too. I split my time between 2 schools.
Okay. So this is just totally good. How did you get involved in your career?
When I was younger, I grew up on the West Coast, and back then there was a pretty thriving commercial fishing business. And I started doing that when I was 19, right out of high school. And just worked my way up. The company I work for now, we do supply boats out to the oil platforms.
Okay. So you weren't in the Navy?
Nope, not in the Navy, not in the Coast Guard, none of that.
So you went right as a civilian, basically?
Yep.
Okay. What's the difference between the Navy and the Merchant Marine?
The Merchant Marine would be more similar to like the National Guard.
Okay.
You sort of have a military designation, but you're not an everyday service. It's not the National Guard, but the reserves. More like the reserves. You're a
Oh.
sailor, but you're committed to going in the Navy or in the naval service if need be. During war times, they've called civilian ships in and just said, we need you to run naval supplies and naval personnel and stuff. So that's kind of the merchant marine.
Got it. Like Dunkirk for America.
Okay, yep. Something from Germany, I'm guessing.
Right.
Okay.
Hey, Joe, just throw that out there. I don't know. Have you ever been on a ship that sank?
I've told you a couple of stories where we've been really close and the Coast Guard's bailed us out. So
I remember that story. That's when one of your pumps was failing and you guys had to.
Yeah,
the Coast Guard flew us out a pump. That was a pretty close call. I want to say we were probably 20 or 30 minutes away from getting in the life raft when the Coast Guard got there.
I remember that story. That one stuck with me.
Yeah. So
very interesting.
That's crazy.
One thing that I did pick up from one of your podcasts, and I think you're on there as well. I think both of you guys are on there. Is the app Ramoon, if I'm saying it right?
Maroon, yeah.
Maroon, yeah. Are you using it
right now?
Yeah.
I use that just to keep track of my training hours. That's the only thing I do. I just keep track of training hours. There it is right there. I found it pretty useful just to keep me sort of like, hey, I got 100 hours in. Great.
I got to go back and revisit that app because I have found tracking my training in the past to be useful as well. Currently, I'm not very active using that, but I need to.
But it's just, I don't go in depth with it at all. I just literally put in the day I trained, because you can put the date, the time of the day, and then how long you trained for in total, like an hour and a half, and then how long you sparred for that day.
Right.
And that's all I do.
And that's
it
enough.
takes about 10 seconds to just boop, 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 boop. But then it keeps it running total.
Right.
And that's what I like to see. Just, okay, if it's slow progress, even if it's only twice a week, at least it's like, okay, good. I'm getting something out of that.
Yeah.
Because I don't, Byron, you've been on there too. I don't know if you're still.
I forget to do it. And I obviously not training now, but I forget to enter in when I leave or whatever.
Yeah.
What we did or how the training was, but I wish I would make it more of a habit. And I talked to the gentleman who designed the app. I said, put a timer to where 9 o'clock at night, it reminds me to check and enter my Maroon in, or maybe if you could, probably a little more technically difficult, but if you could make it to where when I show up at a location, like the gym, it reminds me, hey, ding, here's the app. But I don't think those might be, he's added a lot of features to it. Like you have to keep track of your GIs and different tracker, injury tracker, and goal settings and that sort of thing. But I just forget. I just keep training and then forget. It's very fun to see people, because there's also a social community on there as well.
Yeah.
And people will interact with you and say, hey, good job on that, and
right.
Tournament results up and that sort of thing too.
Yeah. Very nice. Excellent. I have a patient coming in pretty much in the next 5 minutes.
Okay.
So I got to roll.
Thanks, Eric.
Are you good with us putting this online?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Cool.
If anybody wants to hear me talk, that's their own problem.
We've been saying that for a few years now.
Yeah, right. And by the way, I love all your guys' banter. When you guys bust each other's chops, it's hilarious. I love it.
Thanks.
So don't stop teasing each other, because I certainly enjoy that.
Well, good. Well, thank you, Eric.
So all right. Well, thank you. It's nice to meet you guys. I'll keep listening, and I'll keep being a fan.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Take care. Appreciate your talking today. A lot of fun. Take care.
All right. That was good, Joe. Have somebody
that
stop
was
in
good.
here.
Yeah, 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I think what you said. That's what I told my wife anyway.
Well, you ready to wrap this thing up?
I was thinking we should consider doing this like 2 days before each topical episode as well. We always ask the group if they've got any input, but
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm good with that. I'm good with whatever. I mean, it's not hard to do this. So, but yeah, well, cool.
Well, I'm
Well,
glad we had enough. I'm glad we had a meeting with 100 participants, in case we got that big. We came pretty close.
yeah, it was borderline there. As more people installed the Zoom app, it just becomes easier. Like, and we just put it on Facebook, and not everybody saw that, obviously. So if you're watching this on YouTube, or we put the audio on the podcast stream, I guess let us know, or follow us on Facebook, and we'll try to get the word out better about the next time we do this. And yeah, we'd like to have more people, and we kind of ask Eric questions versus him asking us questions, which is cool, because I mean, you get somebody that you don't know, I got questions for everybody. But if you come on with questions, that's cool too. He has questions as well. We definitely
With his line of work, he's got a unique perspective that a lot of people don't have.
Yeah, most people have unique situations with their stuff. So yeah, awesome to have a chiropractor stop by. So
Yep.
if you're in his area, go see him if you need some work done. So, all right, Joe, it was good chatting with you, and Eric as well.
All right, Byron, we'll see you later.
All right, later, buddy.
Bye.